Well, the New Conservatives group, a group of Conservative MPs elected since the Brexit referendum, launching what I would regard, I think they're saying it isn't, but what I would regard to be something of a challenge to Rishi Sunak to actually cut levels of legal net migration from the record levels that we're currently seeing. And of course, Rishi Sunak talks a lot about stopping the boats. Well, certainly haven't done that. It talks very little, though, about actually cutting levels of legal net migration. Of course, it wasn't that long ago, really, that David Cameron and Theresa May talked about reducing it down to the tens of thousands net per year, which would seem to me to be a very sensible thing to do, and actually would be the type of approach that I think would give the Tories some hope of actually defeating Labour and winning the next election. However, it looks like they're going to go absolutely nowhere near that. And you've got some backbench Tory MPs at least trying to get Rishi Sunak's government to cut levels that we're now seeing. The problem you've got, of course, is even the likes of Suella Braverman, someone else I think the government should be listening to, even though she's Home Secretary. Still, when it comes to, for instance, her belief that the UK should leave ECHR, even as Home Secretary, she's ignored. So I don't know how much hope the New Conservative group here has of actually being listened to. But look, they've launched this plan to cut migration. Tom Hunt, very solid, a decent Conservative MP, has actually authored this. And they've put out there this 12-point plan that they've put out today. And I'm going to play a clip of Tom Hunt, the Ipswich Tory MP, speaking about this today. And what I want to know from you, really, I know many of you currently intending to vote Reform. Many of you did actually vote Conservative back in 2019. If the government did take the approach that Tom Hunt talks about here, would that be enough to win back your support and vote Conservative at the next election or not? Watch this and let me know.
And when we knock on doors, one issue is coming up almost as much as any other issue. And that issue is migration. It's illegal migration, of course, that comes up a lot, but also the level of net migration. When I think about the town that I represent, I think over the last 40, 50 years, Ipswich wouldn't be the place that it is without migration. I think it's benefited from that. I think it's enriched the town. And I think recently, though, the level and the scale of migration has been too high, it's been unsustainable. I think it is wrong to brand people who have concerns about net migration being at the level it is right now as somehow hostile to immigration. That is absolutely not the case, and it's disparaging to label people as xenophobes for having concerns about having net migration at 500,000 a year. Net migration is an issue. It needs to be viewed in the round. As Miriam said, it's not just about GDP figures. It's about GDP per capita, but it's also about rapid and social change, cultural change within communities. It's about pressure on public services. It's about pressure on housing. And it's also about our democracy. The fundamental point is, if you went to the British people and said, do you want net migration to be at the level it's currently at, you'd be lucky if you could get 10 or 15% of the electorate voting for it. There is a chasm between where most of the public are at when it comes to net migration, the level it's currently at, and the reality. This paper, if enacted, would narrow that gap. And I think that is good for democracy, and I think it's good for representation in our country. So what are we looking to do? What is this paper looking to do? Essentially, we made a promise in 2019 that we would decrease net migration and we would increase the quality of it. Since then, net migration has gone up significantly. Admittedly, a large amount of that in the last year has been because of Ukrainian and Hong Kong refugees, something which we all support. But it's something which is quite unusual to happen to the scale that it's happened. So it will likely come down naturally anyway. But we want to get back to the promise that we made in 2019. The promise that got many people who have never voted Conservative before to put their trust in us. And that is the first stage. But what I'd also say, it's good that we can have this debate. And the reason why we can have this debate is because we've ended EU free movement. If we hadn't have done that, it'd be pointless being here because we can't control it. We can control it. And actually, in a sense, it's not surprising that we're stood here having this debate because for the first time in a very long time, we've taken back control of our immigration system. We've introduced a new points-based system that does need some tweaks. That isn't necessarily that shocking. I think we've only just introduced it. And I'm not blaming anyone who designed it. But ultimately, we've got to get the balance right. We can control our immigration, and it's important that we do that.